When I was in year 10, I remember looking at this and I was like, what is this? This is like black magic. People come up with these numbers and they just have no reason. They're just like, yeah, but it works. Like, but why, okay? Now,
Eddie has created things that will probably change education forever in at least some way.
They're always going to charge you interest. You're going to say, oh, that's cool, I'll just pay a day earlier. And they'll say, ha ha ha, joke's on you, we'll just charge you interest earlier.
It's difficult to understand, really, how someone in Sydney can influence thousands of people across the whole country.
Remember, the length is X, right? Oh, you see it? Right? And then you're like...
We love him to become either a doctor or a lawyer.
Certainly Eddie could have been any one of those things and earned heaps of money, but he's chosen to be a teacher.
I've given you hundreds of HSC questions. What's something you would feel confident explaining in front of other people?
He sucked me in. I don't want to say it, but he sucked me into maths.
The thing that wakes me up in the morning and makes me roll out of bed is that every day I'm going to stand in front of 24 students. Every single one has a journey behind it and an interesting story, and that just is new every time. This is my 10th year teaching, and I love my subject.
There is a shortage of mathematics teachers. They're in high demand.
Good morning, this is Eddie Woo from Cherrybrook Technology High School calling. How are you going?
It'd be lovely to be able to clone Eddie Woo so that you had a range of him in schools.
Come in, grab a seat, and if you have your devices there, get your devices out. I've met many students who've come to me and, polite as they are, will walk into my classroom first day of the year and they'll say, look, sir, no offense, I just want you to know I don't do maths. There's a lot more to maths than just numbers, right? So I view that kind of student as my personal mission to turn around. In case you didn't already know, I record my lessons. I record all of them. In fact, I'm about to record this one.
I've always hated maths. I don't think I had the brain for it at all.
Oh, you even put in the tax bracket?
Yeah, no, it's this one. I would sit doing homework and I would mostly end up in tears because I just didn't understand it and it never made sense to me. And I think not making sense it made me so angry.
I'd like to say mathematics never came instinctively for me, which is why now I sort of know that just because mathematics doesn't come naturally, that doesn't mean you can't work with it and come to an understanding of it. Often we give up.
Well, this is the taxable income. Wait, yeah, taxable income. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm going to drop it. This is the worst thing. I have much other things I would want to do with my time. So I think the hard part of this question is there's so much information. I implored her to continue, and one of the ways that I did that was just to help explain to her, well, okay, let's go back to the point where you did understand. And even some of the most oppositional students, once they get a taste of what it's like to be able to solve a question, they fall in love too. Is there anyone who still doesn't have their name down?
I call Eddie Ez. I've always called him that since childhood.
If you had to pick one,
Initially, I didn't know that Ez had so much interest in maths that he would want to teach it.
My brother has made a very surprising kind of trajectory of his own that none of us really expected.
My parents, Tony and Angela, they were both born in Malaysia and they moved to Australia largely because the education system in Malaysia and many of the opportunities for people growing up in Malaysia are extremely limited.
I came here when I was just about 19 and don't know anybody. It was quite tough, the first year especially, very tough year because of the accent problem. We couldn't understand, most of us, and the Fed income, the Aussie accent. My mum did work when she was back in Malaysia as a newsreader. She could speak
English fluently, also Cantonese, Mandarin, Bahasa Melayu, 16, 17 different languages or dialects.
My parents sacrificed a lot to come to Australia because my mum was leaving a career and my dad was leaving his family.
My brother, sister, and I were born and we were raised here in Australia. They were very, very insistent that we made English our first language. I can speak Cantonese and Mandarin in a very cursory way, so I can count, I can describe foods, I can say my name, but that marks basically the extent of it. I certainly couldn't have a conversation in Chinese, which makes me a little bit sad because I know that's part of my history. Them wanting us to speak English came back to them not wanting us to be singled out as immigrants, for us to be deeply a part of this culture, to belong here. Hang on, boys. When I go on playground duty, I go out and I see these hundreds of children running around, and I watch for the students who don't have a group of friends, or even the ones who do, but I can tell they're at the fringes. I think that growing up, racism was something which I definitely felt around me.
In the late 70s and 80s, there weren't a lot of Asian families in our area, so to us, you know, we felt Australian, but we just looked Chinese.
They're ignorant, they don't try and learn our customs or our language or anything else, and I think there's just too many of them.
When I was in primary school, they used to sing little rhymes which mock Asians, and I used to sing them and I didn't realise what it actually meant until later.
They're overtaken the schools. All the men, they carry pen knives and everything, and they go and bash up girls and rape girls and everything.
I remember someone yelling at me down the street, "Ching Chong Chinaman," once upon a time, and I'd been called Gook.
The people who I spent time with at school, you know, sometimes they would beat me up because I was little, because they could. There were days when I would not want to go to school because that was what I knew was waiting for me. My mum, she would buy me books, and I really treasured those books. People in my class who didn't like me knew how much I loved those books. Sometimes they would find them and they would steal them, and I would find them out in the playground, you know, all dirty and covered in dust or ripped up.
So that is a discrimination we suffered. We have to put up with, I suppose.
I still remember, you know, my parents said to me, this happens, and it's our role to endure that and to know that sometimes life is not fair. I only have one rule in my classroom, and I call it the human rule. Very simple. I will treat you like humans, and I expect you to treat me like a human too. One of the most important qualities of a teacher is to be compassionate. So you got an answer, but it was off, wasn't it? Okay, let's try and work out what happened. It's the difficult kids, the kids who don't seek out your help, the kids who are reserved. Yeah, you're gonna have to multiply both of them by 750. I know that those are the kids who need the help most because I was one of those.
Mum and Dad put a lot of emphasis on education. They wanted us to study hard, which I think is quite common for migrant families. Out of the three of us, Ez went straight into James Roos High School, which is selective. James Roos is the cream of the crop for all students.
My parents thought that they had struck gold. They had seen that other children who'd gone to selective high schools had come out and become the leaders of the world, the lawyers, the solicitors, the engineers, the politicians, maybe.
These are the occupations that give you good incomes, so to speak, and also sort of more status.
My brother then said, I am going to choose education. I want to be a teacher. And the air was heavy then. You really could cut the air with a knife. You really could hear a pin drop.
We sort of said, we really look at each other and say, what? What is it doing? What is it, you know?
They said, you know, why do you think we've come to this country for? What do you think was the purpose of us leaving behind all our families and our pre-established life? Did you think we came here for the weather or for the politics or for, what was it?
Even though I could not understand that was so important to him, I just let it be, let him do what he wants.
My mum was a little different. She said, Eddie, over my dead body. But Eddie stuck to his guns.
I really wanted to do something which I saw my skills really lined up well with, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized this is the direction I want to go in. Not keen on maths? What's your favourite subject? Sport. That shape there, we call it a parabola, right? It's the shape that every single object makes when you throw it through the air. Like that's the path of like a ball.
It's just one or two teachers that changed the mind of a child.
Those sections are all related together mathematically.
Mr. Best and Mr. Brown, they were the teachers that inspired him to become a teacher.
Some mulberry trees growing in the chookyards.
One of the deepest memories I have is of my agriculture teacher in Year 7, Mr. Brown.
And the poultry Hilton.
Yes, well, it is quite an establishment. We were walking down to the school farm, and he turned to me and he said, Edward, how are you today? And I kind of paused because I'd never been asked a question like that by an adult before. And I thought, is this a test? I just saw teachers cared for their students, and that made a really deep impression.
A big part of being a teacher was to try and make the kids feel that they counted and they were important.
And I feel like that's the thing which I gained from both of you now that I'm a teacher. It's a lot.
Eddie always struck me as being a very enthusiastic student. But the last 2 years of high school, he went through that, all of the trauma of having his mother very ill in his senior years.
I was in Year 10 when my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was not a smoker. She was healthy in every way, was very fit, and so it came as a complete shock to all of us.
She's not the type of woman who give up easily. She struggle and struggle.
I have the distinct memory of lots of nights spent sitting beside the bed, 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., because she would need someone to be able, at a moment's notice, because when you can't breathe, you can't breathe, to be able to quickly act and help her and bring her whatever she needs. It had to be me because there was no one else in the family who could do it.
Somehow when Mum passed away, Ez grew up really fast.
Be a family, what that means.
It was a very difficult period for all of us. But he was the youngest and somehow he was like a rock.
Sometimes I get a bit emotional when I look at your mum.
It's really natural.
Yeah. I was an emotional wreck. It was him who actually, the reason for my living. He would have been comforting me and holding my shoulders and said that, hang in there, you'll be right. See, as a young, he was only 19 years old, he knows how to comfort the father. And I said, my God.
I wanted to be someone who could be brave. It's been a long time, Dad.
Yes, it has.
And not give over to others the burden of having to care for me because I was a mess. I wanted to be able to hold things together because I saw my family falling apart around me, and I knew someone had to be strong.
When I look back at it, what I think it was his Christianity, his faith in God, that he would meet Mum one day again in heaven.
It makes Eddie the person he is today, having gone through the death of his mum. I think it's made him more empathetic to people who have an illness.
In 2012, I had a student in one of my classes who was very ill. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he was away from school for huge chunks of time, getting treatment. I still had it as a keen memory how much of my later years in high school had been deeply affected by cancer and what that did to my education. And so I felt very personally that I should do something about this. And I came to that realization that actually we have technology now which can help with this. Why don't I just take my phone and then when my lesson started, I just hit record. So, 1, 2, 3 definitions. Now, segment notation relates to this middle one. All my other students noticed that I was doing this and they said, hey, what's that about, sir? And sure enough, they started to watch and they started passing the links for the videos to their friends in other classes. And then those students started to meet with friends from other schools. This is a complex number, and if I put them all together, I'll get another complex number at the end. Okay, I just need to...
WooTube is honestly a lifesaver. I can't tell you how many times, like before maths exams, people would be on WooTube looking up videos for topics that they don't understand. And then as soon as they watch the video, they're like, oh, it makes sense now, I can do this test.
I just need to manipulate it.
Eddie Woo makes these videos free for anyone, and that's a real equality issue.
The square of z minus 4.
They're available for anyone, anytime, anywhere, and that's really exciting.
Cobar's a very small outback town. Our population's around 5,000 people. We're a mining town, and we've got 3 schools, 2 primary and 1 secondary.
It's a reducible interest rate, which is compound interest. Okay. I love maths because it solves problems. You're going to have to go backwards before you split it up again. Yeah. I had a really awesome maths teacher myself at high school, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna go to uni and be a maths teacher. When you move it, you're going to be now dividing. So that should be on the bottom down here with your division.
Really?
One of my major problems with math when I was struggling with it was that I didn't understand the first steps, and that would cause a chain reaction with the second step, the third step, the fourth step.
And your gradient is?
2/3.
Yep.
You know, it hasn't been my favourite subject, but I would like to go to university and maybe do some sort of a business degree. But, and I feel like some basic sound knowledge of maths is important there.
We've just been doing practice questions. What are you doing with your Year 12 class? I'm trying to think of something interesting and exciting to do with them tomorrow.
What I did was I set up the room with 4 corners, and I set up like a sort of mini whiteboard for each kid.
It's hard to get teachers out here that might be a little bit different, so I might know 3 or 4 ways to explain a topic, but it hasn't clicked with a student.
Can we walk through this for a second? Now, you've seen this before. I wonder if you...
So I can bring that other teacher in the form of an Eddie Woo video. He can explain it again.
Yeah, so there's a lot of equal signs there. We need some of them because it is an equation after all.
I've just got the Wi-Fi, just Google it up saying simultaneous equations, Eddie Woo, and then it comes up.
Takeaway 7 is 5. Cool. Yay, I can maths. This lady afternoon.
I can use it at home. I don't need to travel or pay for it. It just removes those barriers that hold us back sometimes due to isolation.
I don't know where he finds the time.
Why don't we give these a shot?
You talk to him and he's going, oh, head of maths, I've got to do this thing. I'm going to interview panel for another school. I got to upload this video, edit this, and I'm going to start making practice papers for you guys. And then, oh, my kid's sick, and I got to take him to the doctors. And I'm going, There's 24 hours in the day for you, right? It's not more.
Whoops. Don't eat the whole pile. All right, who's going to go first?
He really works hard at making family time and work life.
What colour's that? Blue. Blue. Nathan, your turn next.
When he gets home, he really prioritises time with our children.
Jamie! You always win. I often am ribbed, sometimes out of good humour, sometimes not, about how teachers have lots of time off from school, and isn't that lovely to have so many holidays? If it's school holidays, you'll often find me at the hospital.
I've heard of Ez and Mish having to go to the hospital in the middle of the night because one of the children have had like an allergic reaction or an asthma attack that was so severe.
We'd like Nathan to eat lots of oats over the next 6 or 8 weeks. Then at some point after that, we'll do another upper endoscopy. There really could not be a better example of a family that has the full hand of allergic diseases. How's that going?
He does still say, my tummy hurts.
Studies show that if you are the Australian-born child of 2 parents born in Asia, as both Eddie and Michelle are, your chances of having eczema compared with children with 2 Australian-born parents are about double. And we'll get a scope organised and... Yeah.
I remember my mum would send me to school covered in Band-Aids, maybe 7 or 8 Band-Aids across my hands because I would just scratch at them and they would just bleed. And my face would be all swollen and puffy because I was constantly scratching.
There's such a strong genetic component. The Woo children really are sitting ducks for allergic disease. Emily is allergic to a long list of foods that includes milk, nuts and fish. Jamie, he has immediate type food allergies and eczema. Of Eddie and Michelle's 3 children, I would say Nathan is the most severely affected by allergic disease.
At 4 months old, I knew something was not right. He had really bad eczema all over his skin. We had to get the nurses out every day to help us wrap his body like a mummy. When Nathan was between 9 and 12 months, he started losing weight. At 18 months old, he started vomiting randomly.
Nathan was diagnosed with a very rare condition called eosinophilic esophagitis. Can you swallow? This is something which even many doctors haven't heard of.
Very funny.
Yeah, it's been a while since you had this one. The difficulties are every day for him. Eating itself has become a really difficult experience because when he was younger, eating was associated with an incredible amount of discomfort and pain. Just to squeeze food and drink down his esophagus.
He was classified as failure to thrive, which means he wasn't growing because he wasn't getting enough nutrients.
He's 6 and he weighs less than a typical 3-year-old. And if you put him in a room with 200 other children his age, he would be shorter than 199 of them.
He's got Rex the dinosaur.
That's Woody!
Ham the piggy bank. I'm getting to Woody. It's a concern for me when I think about Nathan growing up, knowing that he's always going to be little. I'm a little nervous for him knowing that he'll always stand out a little bit because of his size. You probably like your toys too. Since becoming a parent, what they do when you leave the room. That's really coloured everything about the way that I approach my work as a teacher.
Oh no, I can't bear to
He wants the best for our kids, and in the same way, he understands that the parents of his students want the best for their children.
It's so good to see you again. Like, if I didn't have you as a maths teacher, I don't think I would have been able to achieve whatever I did because I used to struggle with that.
Eddie's results are always really strong. We had a student last year who got 100, like literally 100 in their Extension 1 HSC exam, which is fairly unheard of. It doesn't happen.
I can say, actually, in 2016, I taught this boy, and he got 100%. It's possible. Human beings can do it.
So much goes on around him that celebrates the work that he does. I've literally never seen it go to his head at all.
Now, our final teacher today from Cherrybrook Technical High School, where he's a maths teacher, but he's also an internet sensation. This guy is the Kim Kardashian of Australian mathematics teaching, as far as I'm concerned. This is Eddie Woo.
There is no doubt that teachers generally change lives, and somebody as motivated and as wonderful as Eddie undoubtedly will.
I view all of these awards as part of raising the profile of education and helping people recognise that teaching matters and it deserves the best people who we can press into its service.
I can see the pride in him when he tells me that another student has gone into teaching.
Teachers are talked about as knowledge workers.
To be honest, I never really considered teaching maths until I had Mr. Wu as a teacher.
When we develop a curriculum.
I finished my HSC last year with an ATAR of 99.2. My mum expected me to do law, but my passions were in education. So there are definitely a lot of parallels between Mr. Wu's story and my story.
Mum always used to teach me how to cut things properly, and I could never do it.
When my mum was sick, we went through this stage where we wanted to get all her recipes down on paper.
I'm like,
one of the best bits, you have to have sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the recipe book, family recipe book. And that's how we kept our culture alive, and that's how we kept mum alive, basically, through cooking.
At least you can cook most of it. I can cook like maybe properly 3 actual dishes, including this one.
From
what she could make. Did you just?
Eddie's mum not being around to see the kind of teacher that he is really sad. She would have been so proud of him.
I'd like to think that she'd be proud of me. I really feel as though part of what it means to be a son in an Asian family is that honouring our parents really matters.
I'm very proud, but I was afraid that I might be boastful. That was the only thing that I have to be conscious of. Sometimes people say, "Oh, your son is so famous." That is Tony's son. So I become well known because of my own son.
The success that I've been able to experience, it's his success. It's the ratification of why he sacrificed what he had with all of his family and his security in Malaysia, why he gave all that up to come here. It was worth it.